U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says he hopes working-level discussions to revive nuclear talks with North Korea could occur very soon. However, he stresses a follow-up leaders' summit is not on the cards right now. Returning from Washington, Seoul's trade minister says American industries are feeling the heat of Japan's export curbs on South Korea and are calling for the trade spat to be resolved ASAP. Plus, China throws its hefty support behind Hong Kong's embattled leader Carrie Lam and slams what it calls the violent acts of the city's protesters. We begin this morning in Washington. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is optimistic working-level talks with North Korea will resume very soon. President Trump's top diplomat also said he hopes there are creative ways to break the current deadlock in the nuclear negotiations. Our Lee Seung-jae starts us off.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says he's hopeful working-level talks with Pyongyang can get underway again very soon. Speaking to the Economic Club of Washington, D.C. on Monday, Pompeo also said there are creative solutions to unlocking the current impasse in nuclear negotiations in exchange for sanctions relief. Calling the situation a Rubik's Cube, Pompeo said it's a difficult challenge not only for Washington, but also for Pyongyang. Touching on the possibility of a third summit between President Trump and Kim Jong-un, Pompeo admitted there's nothing in the works at the moment, signaling working-level talks are first on the agenda. While the leaders of North Korea and the United States agreed to resume working-level talks when they held a historic meeting at the inter-Korean border a month ago, Pyongyang has since warned the resumption of talks will be contingent on whether Seoul and Washington go ahead with joint military exercises set for next month. Regarding North Korea's recent firing of 2 short-range ballistic missiles into the East Sea, Pompeo at the time brushed them off as a negotiating tactic and added he anticipates talks will start again. Pompeo is scheduled to travel to Thailand this week to attend regional meetings led by Southeast Asian states. While there was speculation he could meet North Korea's Foreign Minister Lee Yong-ho in Bangkok, Lee is reportedly passing on the event. Calling it too hypothetical, Pompeo declined to comment on a scenario where the U.S. would lift sanctions on North Korea as long as the regime didn't build more nuclear weapons. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, 5 days after North Korea's short-range missile launch, the U.S. has sanctioned a North Korean man based in Vietnam. On Monday, the Treasury Department sanctioned Kim Soo-il for violating UN Security Council resolutions and supporting the North's missile program. It said Kim, as an employee of the North's Munitions Industry Department, traded goods between North Korea and Vietnam to help the regime earn foreign currency. His US-based assets will be blocked if he has any. Instead of taking direct aim at North Korea, the US has been sanctioning other parties helping the regime. The last time the US sanctioned an actual North Korean official was back in December of last year. Now, voices are rising within South Korea for the cancellation of the General Security of Military Information Agreement signed with Japan. They want the deal scrapped in light of Tokyo's trade curbs on Seoul. However, the Japanese government hopes South Korea sticks with the pact, which has been automatically renewed every year since it was established back in 2016. Kim Hyo-sun with the details.
Amid the continued trade spat between Seoul and Tokyo, there are increasing calls within South Korea demanding the government scrap the 2016 agreement, which ensures the two governments work hand in hand to protect classified military information. This option to scrap the deal was raised during President Moon Jae-in's meeting with the leaders of the nation's 5 political parties in mid-July.
The government must seriously review nullifying the General Security of Military Information Agreement with Japan. We must question how Tokyo can provide us with military information when it opposes security cooperation with us.
Seoul's National Security Advisor Chung Eui-yong said the agreement should be kept, but added Seoul can be flexible depending on the circumstances. The Japanese government, however, hopes to keep the agreement. Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga stressed Monday that the neighbors should continue cooperation on necessary areas despite their rocky bilateral relations.
The agreement has been automatically extended every year since its inception, based on that it strengthens cooperation and collaboration in the security areas of both countries, and that it contributes to regional peace and stability.
The agreement can be terminated if either party notifies the other of its intention to cancel at least 90 days before the end of each one-year period, which is every November. The deadline to issue a notification to terminate is August 23rd. As Japan is scheduled to remove South Korea from its whitelist of countries that enjoy preferential treatment in trade on August 2nd, Tokyo's decision is likely to affect the fate of the classified military information sharing agreement. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Now, South Korea's trade minister says American firms are showing strong support for South Korea amid the Seoul-Tokyo trade tensions, admitting the US itself is starting to feel the heat from Japan's export curbs. The minister's remarks on Monday came following her trip to Washington, where she discussed the issue with some key US officials. Oh Jung-hee reports.
U.S. industries have been dealt a blow by Japan's export restrictions on South Korea and are calling for the trade spat to be resolved quickly. That's according to South Korea's Trade Minister Yoo Myung-hee, who visited Washington last week and met with key trade-related officials.
I stress that Japan's export curbs will hurt not only Korea and Japan, but the whole world, including American companies, through the global supply chain. This could shake up the international trade order and weaken coordination among Korea, Japan, and the U.S. on regional security.
Minister Yu said officials from the U.S. government and Congress, including Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross, showed understanding and said they'll work with Seoul. But what was noteworthy, according to the minister, was the response from U.S. industry. American companies have been silent since Japan's announcement, but they sent a letter to Seoul's trade minister saying they've started to feel the impact.
It was not only the U.S. semiconductor and IT industries that took part in writing that letter, but also the manufacturing sector. The letter claimed that Japan's unilateral change in export policy could cause confusion in the global supply chain and deal a blow to overall industry in the long term. They pointed out that there needs to be a quick resolution.
The trade minister said South Korea is always ready to meet with Japan. Seoul had proposed that the trade ministers of the two countries meet on the sidelines of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership meeting later this week, but Tokyo turned that down. Japanese media are reporting that Tokyo will decide whether to take Seoul off its export whitelist on August 2nd, and the minister said Seoul is getting ready for all possible scenarios. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Now, as a follow-up to that report, Japanese media outlets are expecting Tokyo to remove Seoul from its so-called whitelist of countries that enjoy preferential treatment in trade. According to the Yomiuri Shimbun and the Sankei Shimbun on Monday, South Korea is expected to be kicked off the list, making the import of Japanese goods more complicated for South Korea. The process includes steps such as obtaining approval for each item from Japan's Trade Ministry. If Prime Minister Abe's cabinet approves the removal at Friday's meeting, more products will be restricted for export to South Korea. Now, in domestic politics, South Korea's National Assembly is set to resume deliberations over a $5.7 billion extra budget bill. Now, the core focus of Tuesday's review by the Special Budget Committee will likely be the money set aside for job creation, as well as boosting funds to fight Japan's export curbs. Also today, the Foreign Affairs and Unification Committee will question ministers on issues such as North Korea's recent missile launches, the air identification zone violations by China and Russia, as well as Japan's trade retaliation. Parties will vote on the extra budget bill on Thursday, along with resolutions condemning Tokyo's export curbs and the air intrusions by China and Russia. In a rare show of unity, South Korea's rival parties are coming together to try and address Japan's highly damaging export restrictions against Seoul. They've agreed to establish a bipartisan consultative body this week, while a group of lawmakers, they're also going to fly to Tokyo very soon in a bid to try, at least, to straighten things out. Kim Min-ji reports.
South Korea's 5 main parties will launch a consultative body on Wednesday to deal with Japan's export controls on Seoul. The body will be tasked with drawing up countermeasures against Tokyo's actions, especially with Japan also on track to remove Seoul from its list of white countries that face minimal trade restrictions. The body will include rival lawmakers as well as related government ministers and representatives of the private sector. The move comes after President Moon Jae-in and the chiefs of the 5 main parties had agreed to launch the body earlier this month as part of forming a unified national response.
In our first meeting, we plan to be briefed by the finance ministry on the current situation and discuss this new body's operations and its key functions.
In line with those efforts, a South Korean parliamentary delegation will also visit Japan for 2 days starting Wednesday. The 10-member team plans to hold a luncheon meeting with Fukushiro Nukaga, chief of a parliamentarians' union between the two countries and a member of Japan's ruling party. The South Korean lawmakers are also trying to arrange meetings with other ranking parliamentary officials, although nothing has been confirmed as of yet. The delegation is expected to make most of their time by discussing ways to ease the heightened tensions, as well as deliver Seoul's stance on the matter. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Now, South Korean companies' business sentiment for July has fallen slightly compared to the month before. According to the Bank of Korea on Tuesday, the business survey index for all industries recorded 73 for this month, down a single point on month. South Korean manufacturers' business sentiment also dipped to the lowest point in 6 months at just 71. The central bank pointed to concerns over falling exports prompted by Japan's export restrictions on South Korea. The figure for July is far below 100, meaning there are many more pessimists than optimists on the local economy. A local lawyer has filed a lawsuit against football superstar Cristiano Ronaldo and those involved with the controversial no-show at last Friday night's match between Juventus and the K-League All-Stars. The lawsuit was filed on Monday by former prosecutor Oh Sok-hyun, who's suing Juventus and the event organisers, who allegedly misled fans into believing the Portuguese star would play for at least 45 minutes. Instead, as you can see, Ronaldo spent the entire game sat on the bench. The lawsuit claims the Fasta, the event organisers, knew Ronaldo would not be able to play, yet hid the information to defraud around 65,000 fans of over $5 million in ticket sales. Now, for the very first time, the Chinese government has delivered its official stance on the wave of protests that have been witnessed in Hong Kong. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Hong Yu. So what can we make of this very rare move by Beijing?
Well, Mark, we can say China is taking the protests seriously now, holding the first major press conference from Beijing on the issue since the former British colony was handed over to China in 1997. Beijing condemned the pro-democracy protesters, saying they commit evil and criminal acts during the anti-government protests that have turned violent in the last 3 weeks. Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office spokesman Yang Gong said restoring law and order in Hong Kong is the most pressing priority. And despite the protesters' call for the resignation of its leader and an investigation into the excessive use of police force during demonstrations, Beijing reiterated its support for the police and for Carrie Lam.
The central government firmly supports Chief Executive Carrie Lam leading the Hong Kong administration and carrying out their lawful duties, firmly supports the Hong Kong police strictly enforcing rule of law, firmly supports relevant departments of the Special Administrative Region government and judicial authorities bringing justice to the criminals, and firmly supports people who love the country and Hong Kong safeguarding Hong Kong's rule of law.
Asked about the possibility of the Chinese People's Liberation Army being called in, Yang did not deny the possibility, referencing to a law that allows the Hong Kong government to request assistance to maintain public order from Beijing's military garrison in the city. A deadly riot at the Altamira prison in northern Brazil has killed at least 52 prisoners. According to prison officials on Monday, 16 of the dead were decapitated and the rest were asphyxiated. Number of casualties could rise as authorities have yet to search all of the prison. This gang-related riot began when a group of prisoners attacked a prison wing controlled by a rival faction during breakfast. Inmates also set fires, and that held up the authorities for about 5 hours. Such gang-related riots are common in Brazil's prisons, as human rights groups say jails have become recruitment centers for gangs. There are conflicting opinions over how Las Vegas came to be unusually invaded by grasshoppers. Entomologists point to the columns of light that hotels shoot into the night sky. Grasshoppers are known to be drawn to green spaces and ultraviolet light, which basically cover the entire city. Another expert says the migration can be attributed to wet weather several months ago. More than 100 millimeters of rain fell in Las Vegas this year, leading to high humidity and supposedly prompted them to hop over. The experts stress the grasshoppers are harmless and are unlikely to damage any property before they disappear in several weeks.
Time now for our Life and Info segment, where we focus on information useful for your everyday life. Now, energy bills tend to shoot up during the summer when air conditioning is a must for beating the heat, especially in a country like South Korea. But armed with just a handful of tips, households in the country were actually able to cut their annual energy bills by more than $100. Park Se-young tells us more.
From the TV in the living room to the microwave in the kitchen, appliances at home consume energy even when they're not being used. Simply unplugging the devices or switching off the power strip can help save energy and reduce electricity bills.
Saving on standby energy can reduce electricity usage by 6%. It also helps to buy energy-efficient appliances.
People are also recommended to develop habits like filling the refrigerator 60%, reducing laundry loads, and using the warm function on rice cookers less often to save energy. During summer, turning off the hot water function on water purifiers can reduce energy use. For air conditioners, cleaning filters every 2 weeks and keeping the AC condenser free of other objects can help reduce unnecessary power consumption. Replacing fluorescent lamps with LED lights also reduces energy bills but comes with extra costs. Households that follow such guidelines are able to save around $125 a year on their energy bills while reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
The government has revealed plans to slash credit card commission fees for small merchants in South Korea, including restaurants or convenience stores that opened in the first half of 2019. The Financial Services Commission says around $48 million will be returned to nearly 230,000 small businesses. This is in line with the amendment to the supervisory regulations for the credit finance industry, which took effect in January. This is the first time such a system has been put in place for newly opened small businesses. The Seoul Metropolitan Government will operate a nighttime hiking program up Namsan starting from August 1st. The program is then going to run every single Thursday during August and September, when it's rather difficult to hike during the day due to the intense summer heat. Hikers can listen to a tour guide talking about the various sites, all while enjoying the amazing night view of Seoul from the Namsan Observatory. Up to 100 people a week can sign up to the 3-hour-long program. If this is something that might be of interest to you, you can book a spot yourself by visiting the city's public service reservation website or giving them a call. Now, summer in Korea is a great time to enjoy some outdoor festivities, especially if you have great company, some tasty food, a touch to drink, and plenty of live music to choose from. And the best news is there are literally dozens of music festivals taking place, not only here in Seoul or other major cities, but across the country. And they're all happening over the next few weeks, covering a range of musical genres to satisfy everyone's tastes. Things like rock, electronic music, jazz, and a lot more. Yoon Jung-min reports.
The Incheon Pentapore Rock Festival 2019, one of the biggest rock festivals in South Korea, runs from August 9th until the 11th at the Songdo Moonlight Festival Park in Incheon. The lineup includes famous rock bands like YB, Crying Nut, and solo artists like Jang Bum-jun and Kim Jong-seok. One-day tickets cost around $68 or 80,000 Korean won, and it's about $170 or 200,000 won for the 3-day pass. It's free for children under 13 years of age and those above 65. The Pyeongchang Peace Music Festival 2019 will also be held for the first time next month in the eastern alpine city of Pyeongchang. The Gangwon Rock Festival is another music festival that is making its debut this year, also taking place in August in Inje, Gangwon-do Province. For the Pyeongchang Music Festival, the organizers are offering discounts for people who show receipts on purchases they made in the Pyeongchang area to boost the local economy. The Gangwon Rock Festival offers discounts for locals, teenagers, the elderly, and more. These are just a few of the many upcoming music festivals being held nationwide, including those on Jeju Island and the country's southwestern city of Jeonju. There are also festivals in the southern city of Gwangju's Asian Culture Center and more in the suburbs Incheon and Paju. For more information and updates, the organizers are advising people to check out their websites, which provide more details on the lineups, ticket prices, the venues, and much more. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Good morning. Heat wave alerts are in place for most of the country now, while advisories have been upgraded to warnings for the East Coast and many southern provinces, with highs forecast to top 35 degrees Celsius this afternoon. And due to atmospheric instability, northern parts of the country could see passing showers until this afternoon, so have a small umbrella handy. Sporadic showers, though, will only add to the humidity. And daily highs will be in the 30s in most regions, so brace for sultry conditions this afternoon. The central region will see heavy rain on Wednesday afternoon, possibly lasting until late into the night, while temperatures will be on the scorching side. In fact, the mercury will keep rising, and those in Daegu will have some intense heat through the weekend. So it's very likely a heat wave warning will remain in place for Daegu and its surrounding regions for the next 5 days or so. And some good rest will also get you through the hottest time of the season. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all we have for now on this Tuesday morning here in Seoul. Stay tuned to us here on Arirang TV, and a reminder that we have our next newscast coming up in about an hour and a half at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.
What can this door be?